Numerous. A lot. So,
Big number.
I just got the, interestingly, and some of it makes me feel pretty good. The numbers are interesting though. I think it's interesting, the fact that our county has increased so much in population, and we know that.
Yeah.
And I think that I told you this, did you see that stat that Muscle Shoals County had the third fastest
Yeah.
growth rate, 15% sustained for 4 years?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then, we increased by what,
We'll beat up a petroleum.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but it's easy when you only got a couple. But our calls went down. We had 3,900 calls for 3,902 calls for service in 23. We had in 24 we had 184 less, which was yeah. Our medical calls were up. Our 911 calls were down. We think that the 911 call, we dropped by 224 calls, 911 calls. We think that was because we've had a lot less kids playing with disconnected cell phones, because there was a real trend for that for a while. Because a phone that's disconnected, mom and pop's old cell phone, even though if it turns on, it will still dial 911.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and parents give their kids their old cell phones. Sooner or later, if they're pulling up, they're doing
I never would
911.
have thought of that.
We kind of,
I never had that 911.
we kind of sustained across the board. We had 27 more vehicle crashes, but we had 15 less theft cases. Then, as far as the cases went across the board,
Well, that's a pretty significant metric right there.
the crashes,
Well, it's less theft.
15 less
That
thefts
means, that means the
reported.
prosecution and the.
Right.
all
5
those-
less disorderly conducts. We have +4 criminal mischief, +2 assaults. So we went from 55 to 57. We served more warrants. We had less family member assaults by 10. We tied on the drugs. We lost one on the DUIs. So, traffic stops. We had 156 more traffic stops than we did the year before. It's across the board. It's pretty, really, as you look at it, there was no odd jumps. It was just kind of,
And no real
You-
patterns, it's just.
no patterns
It's just that
developing.
maybe things aren't increasing at the rate that the population's.
And that was exactly what I came up with. I would have expected to see an increase in stuff with the population growth, but we've just kind of maintained, so that's
So it must be good people coming in.
maybe, or at least maybe, maybe.
Well, what stands out to me is the theft thing, because I know you guys have prosecuted, I know that, you've been successful,
Right?
and, and I think the crime aspects, you would think, of course, there's been a difference in the county attorney, so
Right. Oh.
there's a whole different, but that was before just last year, this
Right.
year, but I think you're starting to see that momentum is taking place,
Right,
where
right.
people are understanding this
Yeah.
isn't a place.
And I would agree that one piece, moving a county attorney in that became proactive, was
Yeah,
very, very effective.
so how's the morale of your deputies with all of these?
Oh, I think it's okay. This time of year, it's always a little darker. So, hunting season's over, nobody's excited, they're all glum now. They're doing good. We have some deputies that are in that middle stage of their career, and there's some well-defined, known stages of law enforcement. And but they're working through it. I feel pretty good about where the staff is. I told you that we're hiring for a dispatcher again. So,
That worries me, never mind.
Which position, for whose position?
what?
Which position, for whose position?
Communication,
Hiring,
hiring,
communication.
wanted. Are we gonna talk about the budget today?
We can, but we're
That's gonna be repaired.
Yeah, I've got a 20-slide PowerPoint, and I've got an Excel sheet. First thing on it is to fix your,
Well,
and also the labor calculations.
so, when I go through my budget, where we're at, when this came out on the 8th, we had 191 days of the year gone, with 173 days left to go. So 53% of the year is gone.
Gotcha, time lapse versus time remaining.
47% is left. So anything that has more than 47% of the budget spent is over budget.
Well, think any sort of level of effort deal, where it's pretty steady across the, so labor would be definitely one of those.
Well, in my budget currently, the only line items that I have any control over or have any, all of my operating budget line items are well above glide slope. I mean, we're high, we're not below, we don't have to come up, we don't have to save any money, we're way high.
No,
I am-
wait a minute, you're spending more?
No, we're spending less.
Yes, okay.
Right, so, okay, if I have 47% left of that budget, or if I've spent, right, then I've got enough to make it to the end of the
Gotcha,
year, because I
gotcha.
need 47% or more. 34%, 16%, 25%, okay, clothing allowance is a one-time payout, everybody got paid, I've spent 100% of that budget.
Right.
It's done. 42%, so 37%, 48%, 17%, so all of these line items are nowhere near
Gotcha.
being above. Whereas salaries, I've already spent 62% of my
So if
salary.
you were to forecast an overrun there, what would that be?
$87,639.26.
How are you doing with your health care?
Social Security is 66% over.
Yeah, see, those are all gonna be proportional to your wages, but health
Workers'
care.
comp is 71% over.
Yeah,
Health is 52%, so that's 5% over.
okay.
It's with, I did not highlight.
See, that's a fixed number, that,
Right.
so that's.
Medicare, 66% over. SRS, 70% over. Now, what we talked about was, I have more employees. I was $28,000 short on SRS last year. I have more employees, and I got budgeted less money than I did last year. And I was over last year. The logic of this is.
Well, just so you know, part of what Mike was referring to is, because I filled these guys in, there's an actual spreadsheet now that in our process, we're gonna require you to sign off on. I got 11 guys, this guy gets this much, this guy gets this much, this is that,
Right.
and then this is the healthcare, this is the SRS.
Right.
And then you sign off on it, and so
Well,
that.
Right, again, I don't know what.
You would if you saw it in that format. When
Okay.
you just see wages.
Right.
$600,000, you
So-
don't have any way.
Well, or I've never, and my understanding is that isn't that like you plug in their hourly wage and hit enter and it does the whole thing for you?
Kind of, but it needs to be worked out on a separate spreadsheet. And then you put those numbers in there, and then, see, this is what I kind of discovered going through it. So when I went through it, I found in departments like your department, didn't have the right number of people.
Right,
You mentioned the SRS, and the wages weren't right, and the healthcare wasn't. And the healthcare's huge, guys, because we spend between everybody, we have 59 or 54 full-time, and so, we have 69 people, but some are part-time.
right,
Spend over $600,000 in healthcare.
right.
Yeah, but everyone you miss, if you miss somebody because you didn't have that employee, it's 11 grand. You know, so you miss
Right.
3 guys, that's $33,000.
Right.
So the point is, and believe it or not, your budget was what prompted all of this investigation. So, okay, we're gonna look at, first of all, making you whole and what happened, but then just, cause I looked at, I did an independent labor estimate for everybody. And what I found was, you know, overall, we spend I think we spend close to $4.4 million in
Salaries.
salaries, labor burden, and healthcare.
Right.
And, the Black Mountain only has like 4.1 in there. So we're short, it's like, and you may say it doesn't matter, but it matters, you know? And
Well-
so the department head has to understand and agree with, I've got 11 people.
Right.
Not, well, because I think what happens, they take last year's payroll reports and they match them with an increased wage. And that's not what happened.
No.
And then the other thing they do, which is kind of they budget for healthcare based on what they're actually paying. So if somebody gets more healthcare, they'll budget for more of it. But they're only gonna get, you know, the county's only obligated for the baseline.
Right, baseline, yeah.
So anyway, I guess I'm talking a lot, but I want you to know that you prompted this, but what I ran into when I went through this process is I was finding so many little things, I didn't know how to present it all. And so now I put it together where, okay, we're gonna talk about, you're at the top of the list.
Again, and as I've pointed out, my underlying concern on this deal is, I'm personally financially responsible for this budget.
Okay, good point. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna say, your labor was short. I come up that overall, healthcare, workers' comp, all that markup, at the end of the year, you're gonna be $132,000 short.
I think Mike, to be honest, that's funny, I think Mike, I figured it to be 128,000.
So we're close, we're close.
We're in the same field.
So, but you've been making that up with your underrunnings and
Right,
this other stuff.
all my other line items, the line items that I have control over for budgeting.
Right, but my point to that is, if you needed that money, we don't want a labor screw up in your budget to make you not purchase something you need.
There you go.
And so so we're gonna increase your appropriations if you need it.
I just,
And the other thing too that's equally important is we're gonna, and I wanna go over this number I came up with you that's gonna go to CAPM. And, it's over $1 million.
yeah, I know it
The
is.
other thing too is, that's when we give you close to 300 grand that you got shorted over the past 2 years.
Right.
And so I want you to be, yeah, that looks right to me, and I'm made whole, and then the bigger thing,
You know
Sean,
what
is
it's
we
gonna be?
don't do it again.
It's gonna be a brush stroke. It's not gonna be a scalpel. It's gonna be a brush stroke. And I'm gonna say, yes, this is.
That's what I want, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want you to do a research project on it, we just
Yeah.
say, does this
I
feel
mean,
roughly right? to
This
you?
is .99496.
Yeah,
No,
agree,
we-
Stan, I'm with
We
you.
will get it back, and the whole thing that prompted it, I've said this before, you know what the whole thing that prompted this whole, like, what the
When you
frick's
found out
going
you
on?
got shorted,
Well, my cap imp wasn't increasing like I had projected it would in 2019, and I'm like, why is my cap imp improving? And that's when I started looking and found out what had happened. And
well, and then just to be fair, these numbers, like I came up, we're gonna be moving close to $5.8 million between everybody
Right.
to cap in. And then roughly after that, we're gonna have about $9.4 million in cap in for these various departments.
Right.
Which is good, but,
Well,
this is 2 years of not moving it, but the reason it wasn't moved is because Mako had told Chris that we don't need to move it. But I reminded Mako, that's not Mako's decision. And we think we would rather move that money out of your, you know, so that now you have a number you're managing to.
Right, but there's state law too.
Well, yeah,
It says I
Yes.
can't have more than 30%,
yes.
3%.
Although Mako kind of said, you can use squishy words to justify what you're, but the bottom line is, no, let's get it out of these accounts, let's get it.
Why use squishy words
Yeah,
when you
just
can just move?
move it, and then you're forced to manage to your
Right.
budget that you signed on to,
And
and that's my second point, but the budget you sign on to, so the other thing that's coming out of this is, we're gonna have a work session, we're gonna say, first of all, you guys submit your preliminary budgets. And then the commission's gonna meet with you, Chris, and say, all right, and it's not that complicated. We don't have to go over 400 line items. This is your let's hit the major highlights and make sure, and by the way, this is what we're gonna mill for you,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And this is what you're getting called gross pro, so you have an understanding, you get.
I always previously had a pretty good understanding until I did.
Well, honestly, Sean, you
It all
did,
fell
that's why
apart.
it didn't make sense to have you get harmed by this, when you're the one that seems to be you're really frugal with your budget. But you're also spending money when you need to.
When we need to, but
Yeah.
only when we need to.
Well, but you can be frugal for frugal's sense, which is not, you need what you need to do a good, not just your job, to do a good job, you know.
Yeah, exactly, and again, there are things that, that some of those intangibles, little things, but at the end of the day, I've kind of, and they understand that, they've got very good recording devices, they've got very good cameras, they've got very good everything. That's all you really need, and a little gray matter, you can do this job, and some common sense, a lot of common sense, so.
Well, and experience helps after, but the reason that we're in such good shape is because of that coal mine.
Oh, it's got 100%. We've got.
Otherwise, if we didn't have that, you'd be like, what are you
Which-
gonna do, you know?
Which goes back to being frugal now, and when things change, continue to be frugal with the capital improvement money that will be that stopgap. And this doesn't even have anything to do with me. I'll be out of this office for 10 years before they might have to dig in, but before that mine closes. But-
Yeah, and I think it's good for that mine. No, it's the right thing to do, but it's all subjective. This is where the squishy, some say, well, you shouldn't be building capital improvement, you should be giving the taxpayers. And it's a different, but we
Again,
all
safe.
feel that we need to be,
And,
well, that's why we're making sure that it's level.
right,
Taxpayers aren't paying
more, they're not
More.
paying less, they're
Yeah.
paying level.
Level.
They can budget for what their taxes are gonna be, they
Yeah.
know. But I'm seeing like Billings and these other counties where, the public, especially the new move-ins are wanting more services because where they came from, they had more services. But they don't wanna pay for new service and more services, they just want the more services to magically occur.
right.
And that's not accurate.
No, I mean, there's this whole line between, we don't wanna become California,
No.
you know?
No, and but there's some of that though, I saw this and I wish, where's Mr. Russell?
Huh?
Where's Russell?
With the CFO?
Oh. Mr. Russell can speak more intelligently about this, but the fact of the matter, these people, I saw it on CBS last night, they're questioning why there wasn't a better response to this fire. You got 100-mile-an-hour tailwind, the only thing that you can do is get out of its way.
No, you're right, but you should have water. That's a policy, that's a management policy
Yeah,
deal,
yeah.
where why didn't you have water? Well, because we diverted we got rid of Trump is dead on that. And so the governor made a decision, when they got support otherwise they'd have had these dams that there was more water available to serve the.
Again, I watched some of them spraying buildings that were fully engulfed and wondered why they were spraying
Well,
water.
no, your point is well taken, that you're not gonna do anything, and then that goes to your mitigation. Do you have too much fuel?
Well, this is interesting, so this morning Heidi, my wife and I were having a cup of coffee, and, come on in, Mr. Russell, we're talking about the California fires. I actually went on Google Earth and went to the street view and looked at some of that Palisades, and they're beautiful trees and shrubbery, very thick, in every yard, you go down the street, it's just continuous trees. And I was saying that these people why wasn't there a better response? And I'm like, you get a fire with 100-mile-an-hour tailwind, you get the hell out of the way. Because
Yep, all you could do.
you cannot do anything but save human life. You are not gonna save any property.
Yep.
It is just get them out of the way. Otherwise, 'cause Oh my God, I mean, there's nothing, you can't even really fight the flanks on those things, cause that wind can turn on you and you're screwed.
Yep.
And you can't get out, you literally as a firefighter, you cannot move quick enough to get away from it. We
No.
watched it in the Doll Fire, that was the most unbelievable, it moved,
Bobcat fire, same way.
moves so fast.
Yeah.
I remember calling you and telling you, I can't see it, but I know it's here, I can hear it in Raider Road. I was in Raider, I was
Yeah, and
how
I'm
far south?
all the way in Johnny Cole, and I'm like,
No way.
there's no way, how is it there already? And
Yeah,
And it was.
It was. It was already to Raider Road, and like I said, I couldn't see it, but I could hear it, and it's just,
we did get a request though to send an engine, but
California?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
so we're trying to put together an EMAC deployment through the state. So they
Yeah.
want 3 strike teams from Montana. So strike team is 5 engines of the same type
with the personnel as well?
with the personnel as
So
well.
we'd be sending somebody to California?
We won't because we don't have any qualified.
Okay, but you'd send the engine or?
We could potentially send a DNRC engine. So if they do send the DNRC engine, we're still putting it all together because they don't have to leave for 2 days. So the county would get reimbursed the FEMA rate, hourly rate for the engine. And then also they would pay us, 0.67 cents, or 67 cents, a mile. So, and it'd be a 18-day deployment, so. I'll let you know if any of our engines do get tasked into it.
Well, kind of I get your point about the 100 miles an hour, but I'm talking about, and we've talked about effective mitigation, you know, like if with their surrounding forests and whatnot.
Their entire neighborhoods were forced.
Well,
Yeah.
that's unique, I mean, and I'm not so sure there's anything. And then there's the issue of how did these fires start? I don't think it was arson.
Well,
Won't take much.
The one, it sounds like they arrested one guy.
Yeah, they have
for
to. I mean,
starting
there
one of
was
the
no,
fires.
there was no lightning there, so
yeah,
had to been people caused.
so one, like Sean said, they've already arrested one person that they think was, whether it was intentional arson or they were burning something they shouldn't have been burning.
All that,
But one is human cause for sure. I think they're looking, one of them is a potential power line issue.
The wind slapping power lines.
Yep.
We've had a number of those
Yeah.
type fires here in Muscle Shoals County.
Yep. And if that caused one of them, then we are seriously gonna see, I know last year Northwest talked about, shutting down and browning out on a couple of those days. We'll see it here then for sure, because they'll make it, they were responsible for it, cause right after the Paradise Fire there, the PG&E,
Got put on the hook for that.
got put on the hook for that one, then, Northwestern for that Melstone fire got put on the hook and up there at Stanford, so
See, some of that stuff is mitigatable.
some of
But
it is,
costs
yep.
money. And this is where I was, applauding you guys for getting in with a group to, actually kind of find the money to do these things that seem insurmountable. But they make sense if you wanna avoid this
Yep.
type of thing.
Yep, and then even like during the Doll and the Bobcat fire, there were houses that survived in the middle of all that, they had taken advantage of the mitigation.
Oh, really?
Yep,
What's that tell you?
that tells you need to do it.
Well, and interestingly, some of the designs of some of the houses, especially in the Doll Fire, was really interesting. I can show you 3 different houses that I know about that had this vinyl siding on it. And I don't even know if they knew that it would work this way, but these houses are like right in the middle of the heart of the fire. They should have burned, but the plastic
Well,
bowed out. It
Yep.
bowed out
Created an
an air
pocket.
pocket between the wall and the fire, and it went by it so quick that it survived. And some of this burned hot enough. The one house, which is on Hampton McCord, first house on the right, it burned so hot it broke the windows. And usually for some of the other houses during the Doll Fire, when the windows broke, that was the end of the house, because that house has got a bunch of air in it.
oh,
And
yeah.
sucks the fire right into it. But
Oxygen.
it took, and well, there was some there on Harper Cooley. There was a brand new house up there, and it exploded from inside out. And I know that because the fireplace was scattered all out in the front yard, and the garage doors were all bowed out. It was crazy stuff.
People down there in the LA country, that, Chaparral.
Oh, yeah.
They should not even be building there, number one.
Yeah.
Or if they do, then they've gotta mitigate that
Yep.
shit every year.
Yeah.
It's gonna burn, it burns all the time, been
Yeah.
burning for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and like you said too, it's every year for that stuff because it grows so fast.
Oh, hell, yeah, it rains like the son of a buck, and then it doesn't
Yep.
freeze down there, and
I think another thing, just as we're having this little discussion, that there's a real interesting side effect that's gonna come from this. We're gonna see insurance companies fold.
yeah.
Or to the
Well, they
point,
were already.
That means you
in
can't build
California.
there, you can't get insurance, you better not be building there,
Right.
just like the same way with the floodplain.
right?
Stay out of there.
Exactly,
Yep.
and you just,
Well,
how do you,
And that's too where they're getting away from the ISO ratings that we used to get, you know, where it would, you know, most of the county is an 8, which means you can get insurance, it costs a little bit more. But they're getting away from that and they're using topographical data, satellite imagery, and they're taking pictures of the properties and looking at the drainages, and so there's some
Saying
places.
this property.
if a
this is
fire
not-
starts here, how quickly will it burn up this ridge?
Exactly. And they're like, well, if it's mitigated, we'll provide insurance, if not, we can't,
Right,
and so they're doing a lot of that stuff now, and people
Well, you know
are
what,
getting.
that almost sounds
Yeah.
smart.
Well, I mean, it's smart, but a lot of people are gonna have to then get used to doing the mitigation, taking advantage of the programs, because if they don't do anything, sorry,
they can't have
you
insurance.
can't have insurance.
Yeah, it's kinda funny, remember when Trump said they weren't mitigating, they all said he was crazy? You know, mitigation is mitigation.
Yep.
And again, I went on that Google Earth and put myself on the Palisade streets,
Mm-hmm.
and it's unbelievable. I mean, there's just
feel
shrubbery
for
and
it.
beautiful
Yep.
trees all the way down the street.
So you're saying the water being there wouldn't have made a difference?
Wouldn't have made an iota
And, you know,
of
so that's a good
No,
point,
no.
but it's still something to go, why isn't there any water? And
Because,
that has to
again,
do with
I-
the policies.
And I think that you and I may agree on this, but I've seen video on CBS News and they're spraying water on houses that are fully engulfed, and I'm like,
Yep.
that's wasting water, you're not doing any good, that's.
While the wind's up there.
Yep.
Oh,
And when an entire city's on fire, if you're trying to all pull from the same water source, I mean, pressure's gonna go down, volume's gonna go quick.
You know,
And
what's
they're
not
on
only
the
that,
outskirts.
though,
Yeah.
So the other thing is, nobody has thought about too, if they ran those water lines completely dry, they imploded. The water lines
Yep.
will not withstand without water in them, the water is what
Yeah,
keeps it.
you pull a vacuum on it, you collapse the lines.
Boom, they just.
well, you're right, it's, but given the materials that are in.
It's like driving out on a lake on ice and not knowing that the water level has dropped 5 feet and you're suspended 5 foot above the water on the ice will not support you.
Yep.
You go through.
Well, that kinda, you know, because you hear the narrative is mismanagement and all. There's probably some truth to that, but there's probably some defense saying, look, there ain't anything you could have done. You know, like you cut the budget $17 million, like, well, what's that gonna do for you in a hundred?
Yep.
So I think there's some real criticism there too.
Which brings us back around to a point